thank you for joining me. It's Kirsten, and as the title suggests, we are doing some autumn book recommendations. Now, for those of you that watched my summer book recommendations, you would know that I'm doing this slightly differently. I am thinking of books that do remind me of autumn, but don't necessarily take place in autumn as a setting. So these are all books that just remind me of days where you're curled up under a blanket, or you've got a fireplace crackling, or it's a slightly windy day and you just want a book to dive into that's a little bit, in a way, comforting but engaging. That's kind of where I was going with these books, and as always, do let me know whether you agree with these books, whether you do think they're autumn recommendations, or what some of your autumn recommendations are. But let's stop the ramble, let's go straight into the books that I think remind me of autumn. So of course you cannot have autumn without being wrapped up, as I said, in blankets or with a hot drink of some form and having a mystery to solve. So of course I had to talk about the classic that is Sherlock Holmes, or in this case the first book, which is A Study in Scarlet by Sir Arthur Conan Doyle. I think Sherlock Holmes for me is the original classic murder mystery. I loved his stories, I love watching all the different film adaptations, and Hound of the Baskervilles was the scariest book I'd ever read when I was younger. It was so good and full of atmosphere. So now I have been trying to work my way through these books in order of how to read them. So A Study in Scarlet is the first one where we first meet Dr. Watson and Sherlock Holmes and we're solving their first case together. Now I like this book, one because it's short, so it's a good way to get into this writing, and two because it's split into two parts. We have the first part where we have Sherlock Holmes solving the mystery and Dr. Watson watching in fascination as to how his mind works, and then we have the second part which is from the murderer's perspective and why he did what he did, which I think is brilliant. So I really cannot wait to carry on reading these books. I am filming this video slightly early, so I am planning to have read by the time this video comes out The Hound of the Baskervilles, which isn't in order, but that will be explained in a vlog. I'm so excited and I cannot wait to carry on reading all of these books and just solving all these mysteries together, and it definitely does feel like an autumn book to me. Speaking of murder mysteries, I could not exclude my favourite genre of murder mystery, which is YA murder mystery. I love them. I think they are stunning, they are so much fun and engaging, and you just cannot help but enjoy it. Now I had so many I could choose from for this. I definitely contemplated talking about A Good Girl's Guide to Murder because that is my favourite YA murder mystery ever. I absolutely love it. All of her books have been 5 stars for me. It's so good. But I did already talk about Holly Jackson in the previous seasonal video, so instead I'm going to talk about Truly Devious by Maureen Johnson. And this is a book that, honestly, when I was thinking about it, it just seemed to fit perfectly because our main character, Stevie, she is obsessed with Sherlock Holmes. That's her role model. That's who she wants to be, and you do have a lot of Sherlock Holmes references in this book, which just works perfectly for this video, I think. I loved it. It's all taken place in this elite school that's in the middle of nowhere, which again, perfect setting. And Stevie is going to this school. She's been accepted because she is going to solve the murders and the kidnapping that happened at this school several years ago that nobody has solved. And that's an overarching plot that takes place across the books, but within each book you have a smaller mystery to solve, which, yes, it just works so well. I really did enjoy this. Now at first I was like, it's okay, but it's not as good. I really liked the first half of the book. The second half I wasn't too sure on, but the more I think about it, the more I'm like, no, actually I really do like these books. I'll have to say I still prefer A Good Girl's Guide to Murder, but these are just that easy read with the mystery and everything in it, and I do like Stevie as a character and the way she is just compelled to solve this case and cannot help but look into it, and I really like it. I really do enjoy it. So this is one that I would recommend if you're into murder mystery and want to try YA. Give this one a try. Definitely, I think the setting of the book, everything to do with it, does just make me think, yes, I want to be curled up with a hot drink while I'm reading this book, because that's just how it works. Next, I have a couple of books that I just adore, and mainly because they've got beautiful writing and just a magical world that I could just dive straight into. So first of all, we have Night Circus by Erin Morgenstern. Now this definitely made me think of autumn. This was one of the first books that I picked for this list because I was thinking, okay, what does autumn bring to mind? And for me, it's obviously the leaves falling, even weirdly enough, carnivals, because I think where I lived up in Oxfordshire, every year around October time there would be this carnival that come to town every single time, and I'm just like, yes, that just reminds me of it, of autumn now. And so this book was perfect for that because obviously it's all about a circus that's taking place. It's all about these two magicians in training and they are competing against each other, and they don't even know why. They don't know the rules of it. They just know that they are being told by their mentors that they have to compete. They learn things along the way. Now at first they kind of disregard people's lives, how it's affecting them, and eventually things start to change. But I can say that this book made me go, yes, I want to read everything by Erin Morgenstern. I loved it. It was so good, beautiful writing, lovely atmosphere. It was just magical and wonderful, and the setting was perfect. I absolutely loved it. It is so good, and definitely a book I would say is perfect for autumn because it's just got that changing scenes. It goes from just the whole magic behind it all. I don't know why, but I just feel like that sort of magic just makes me feel like this is a book I want to read on a cozy windy day, and so that's what I think of. But it is an amazing book. It's one that I put off for so long thinking I wouldn't like it, and I would say this is like a more adult version of Carvel. So if you like Carvel by Stephanie Gabar, give this one a try because this is like an adult version of that, but a standalone. So yes, very good. Then we have one of my favourite books ever, and that is Name of the Wind by Patrick Rothfuss. Now we are still waiting on that third book, but I can say that this book, the second book, The Wise Man's Fear, they just make me feel like autumn. Every single time. It's just stunning. We are following this man who is telling his story over 3 days, and each day is a book. He is someone that has all these amazing names attached to him, but now is just a barkeeper. Like, and you're just like, why? What's happened to you? What's caused that fall in your place? And the first book, we're following him as a young child, or well, as he's telling of his childhood where his parents have died, and he becomes a street rat in a way, just running around the streets trying to survive, and then using his cunning to get accepted into this specialist school. And it's got a bit of magic to it. It's also got so many other things, like it's just so well done, and you have this coming of age story as he's learning to understand himself. He's also trying to figure out what happened to his parents, why were they murdered, what's gone on with that, and he's also someone that plays music, which again just gives me all the feels of autumn, and it's just a beautiful book. Honestly, the writing is stunning. I adore this book, and I pick up anything that he's written in this world. He's also done 2 short novellas which I both really enjoyed, and I was actually lucky enough to go to a book signing before everything that happened with COVID to be able to actually meet him, and it was a great time. Honestly, I love this story. I know so many people get fed up with the wait for that third book, but I just think, you know what, eventually it's going to come out, and when it does, I'm going to adore it. So that's absolutely fine. So, yeah, no. So yeah, this one just definitely autumn, yes. So now we have a bit more of a fantasy romance, YA. I couldn't not put it in this video because it's all about the Fae King of Autumn. Perfect for this, and that is An Enchantment of Ravens by Margaret Rogerson. This is her standalone. She mainly does standalones. I also could have done Sorcery of Thorns for this as well, because I do think her books do, I think fantasy in general for me is autumn books. Like, that's how it feels for me, but I have tried mixing it up as much as I can because I just think murder mystery, fantasy, yes, that's what it is, because I just think there's something about autumn where the leaves are changing colour and it's all a bit magical that works so well with that, and Enchantment of Ravens just kind of fits that, especially all the imagery of them going through the forest. Obviously you have the Autumn King as well, and so everything just works, and it's a fantasy romance, which, let's face it, romance works for any time of year, I think, and I think it just depends on the type of romance. So this one is a kind of slow burn. We also have a lot of imagery because our main character is an artist, and Fae come to her all the time for her artwork because they cannot create art, and she is an amazing artist until she has to paint the portrait of the Autumn King, and she does something that she shouldn't have, and that's paint human emotion. And so now she has to justify herself in front of the court, and I think it's really good. You have this slow burn romance that gets built up, and I think the setting, just the imagery in this book is definitely autumn vibes. So if you're looking for a short standalone with a bit of romance, this is definitely a good one. There's also scenes in here which make me laugh. I do think it's a really good book because the Fae in here are so literal that they take everything you say as the truth. And there's this one point where the main character's like, I can't go any further, I need to eat or I'm going to die. And so he's like, oh my god, wait there, I will get you some food, and he goes running off, and it's hilarious. So yeah, it's a good time. I think this one is definitely more of the feel-good autumn book. It's got the autumn setting, and I would say early autumn, when things are just starting to change. You've got a little bit of cold weather, but nothing major. I do think that is the perfect time to read this book. Then we have another sort of murder mystery going on, but this time with witches, which of course you cannot have autumn book recommendations without having some sort of paranormal creature in there, simply because Halloween. But I am going to be doing a separate video for Halloween books because there were so many, and I was like, no wait, let me actually separate this. So I've decided instead to go with one that is more generalised autumn than Halloween specifically, and that's These Witches Don't Burn. This is a book I actually really enjoyed. I do need to get the second book. I keep meaning on doing that, but never mind, we will get it eventually. This book is honestly really good. We're following witches, which, yes, they're modern day witches and they are living in Salem, and they have to kind of keep their power under wraps. They can't show anyone that they're witches and stuff. They're all part of this coven, but witches are now being targeted, and they believe it's by blood witches, which you learn about all the different sections within the witches and who's seen as good, who's seen as evil, etc. And this group of friends get tangled up in the mystery. We also have sapphic romance in here, but also you have a romance that's gone sour. So we have two of these characters who are both witches who were together but broke up before the start of this book, but the breakup isn't a good one, and one of them is still very persistent in like, no, I want to be going out with you, I want to be doing this sort of stuff, you have to love me. And so that's a little bit of toxicity there. But then you have the second romance blossoming, and it's lovely, it's really, really nice, and I like the way it's built slowly. I like all the witch references. I like the fact that it's set in Salem, and the end of this book is a bit more explosive, and I do need to find out what's going on, because it turns out that, is it really blood witches that are targeted them, or is it something more sinister? I love it. There is that murder mystery element going on to it. Well, not so much murder mystery, but there is that mystery element to it, and there is that tension, and I like the fact that we've got modern day witches in this as well. So it just worked for so many things of autumn, but definitely around that October time is going to work perfectly for this. And as I said, I will have separate books for purely Halloween recommendations. Then we have another book that kind of fits in with the vein of the Night Circus for me, and that is of course The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue. This is such an amazing book. This is my favourite book that V. Schwab has written. It is stunning. The writing is beautiful. It is all about this woman who makes a pact with basically a demon of sorts to live forever, but that's not what she intentioned. She wanted to be free because she was growing up in this world where all that was expected of her was to get married and have children, and she's like, that's not the life for me, that is not what I want. And so on her wedding day she runs away, makes a bargain, but the bargain goes sour because it turns out that Addie will be free. She will be free forever, but nobody will remember her. The minute she walks out the room or a door closes between her and the person that she was with, they will forget her. And so she goes through life as like a ghost, really, and it talks about that. It talks about what it's like, what does life mean if nobody can remember you? How can you leave your mark? What is important in life? And I think it's beautiful. We then meet Henry, who is the first person that can remember her. And it just sparks this beautiful story. We do have a few different timelines going on because we have the past and watching Addie over the centuries, and then the present with somebody that actually remembers her. And I think it's a perfect book for autumn. I think one, it's got that magical, as I said, autumn just reminds me of magic in the way that the season is turning. And we also have the darker side to it of the demon being involved, and a general just beautiful written book. This is stunning. The more I'm talking about it, I'm like, I need to reread it. I loved it. This is definitely my favourite book by V. Schwab, as I've said. And I think this and Night Circus and that just proves the sort of writing that I'm in love with at the moment. And that is this sort of beautiful writing with something that's a bit more magical element to it. That is perfection to me. So yes, I adored this book, would highly recommend. It is slow paced, but it's beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. Okay, so back to more of the murder mystery element. We have Every Heart Adoy by Shauna Maguire. This is an amazing short book series. It's so good. All of her books in this series are under 200 pages, but they are fantastic. They are portal fantasies, which I love a portal fantasy. If you've been watching my videos lately, that's definitely my favourite to have at the moment. I don't know why, but I think it's just because you can just disappear into this other world that's alongside ours. I just think there's just that element of magic to it that is capturing me. I think it's so good. And in this book in particular, we have someone that was in another world, has come back to our world and is trying to deal with that, trying to deal with the reality of that, and ends up at this school for children like her. And then some horrible things start happening. We have a series of murders. Again, I just think murder mystery works perfectly for autumn because you just want to, as I said, cozy up, snuggle up into something and solve these crimes, as well as the fact that it's got magic in it and it's a portal fantasy. It just ticked all the boxes. Now, there are several books in this series. Now, some of them are prequels to this, some of them come after this. I would say just read them in the order that they were published. It does work really well, and I love all of them. Honestly, I adore them. I adore all the different stories. There are some blunt parts of the writing because Shauna Maguire likes to make a point in every single book. So in this one, no. In Down Among the Sticks and Bones, this one, which is technically the second book but is a prequel to this one, it's all about don't force your children to be who you want them to be, allow them to be themselves, don't force them into an image that you think is acceptable. So it is a bit heavy-handed in places, but it works really well, and that's the same for all of her books. They all have some form of point to get across, and it, like I said, heavy-handed, but it's a short book, so I don't mind it, and I like the points that it carries. I think they're really important ones, and yes, love these books. I have 2 more to read out of the most recent ones that she has published. I want to get onto them. Honestly, I'm talking about all these books and I'm just like, yes, I just want to read all of them, but they are great. I do recommend it, especially if you're looking for a quick read. These are perfect for that. Okay, so now I have a book that I was debating between this one and a different one, which is Strange Case of the Alchemist's Daughter to talk about, but I've lent that to somebody. Otherwise, to be honest, I probably would have spoken about that one because that's more recent for me to have read and I'm raving about it. We'll talk about that maybe in my Halloween books. We'll see. But Stalking Jack the Ripper by Karen Maniscalco. This is so good. I really liked this book. I think it's fantastic. It is a YA murder mystery set during the time period of Jack the Ripper, when Jack the Ripper is going around killing all the women. Obviously they're trying to solve it but have no idea who's actually doing it, and we have our main character who gets caught up in the murders that are happening and also meets Thomas Cresswell. Thomas Cresswell is my favourite character, male character, love interest, say what you want. Yes, he is perfect for me. I love him, I love the way he interacts. Now this is a 4-book series. I really do enjoy it. We follow Audrey Rose and Thomas Cresswell as they are solving different murder mysteries, and they all are inspired by different things. So for instance, this one is inspired by Jack the Ripper, which perfection. The second book is inspired by Dracula, and it goes on from there. I really do enjoy these books. I think they're so well done. I love the characters. I love the mystery. The Victorian London setting is just, yes, perfect. Absolutely adore it. And I think because it has that Victorian London setting and it has that murder mystery element to it, that's why I think this works so well for autumn. I think it is stunning. All of these books work for autumn, to be fair. I think they're really, really good, and I like the fact that we have Audrey Rose, who is pushing out against the normal conventions of society and wanting to be someone that does autopsies and studies from dead bodies and stuff, which is obviously something that they're like, women cannot do. But she's very much pushing out against that, and I like that, and I like the banter between her and Thomas Cresswell, and of course the mystery that's surrounding everything and all the twists and turns that it takes. This is stunning. I loved it. it's what made me want to then start reading everything Kerri Maniscalco has put out, which is only this series, and she's now doing a second series which started with Kingdom of the Wicked. I do think this is still better, and I think most people who have read this and Kingdom of the Wicked still prefer this, but yeah. It's stunning. I loved it. I think it's a really, really good book, and would recommend if you're looking for something that is murder mystery with a historical setting, this one. This one is for it. Okay, and the very last book that we are going to talk about today is one that I adored the first book of. It's absolute perfection, and this one is kind of towards the end of autumn for me, when it's just starting to turn that bit colder into winter time, and that's The Beautiful by Renee Addie. This is a stunning book. It is beautiful. I like the dark decadence feel to this book. We are in 1872 New Orleans, and we are following this woman who has escaped New Orleans, wanting to reinvigorate her life, reset her life, because she's had to run away for various reasons, which you will learn over the course of the book. She then gets sucked into this dark underworld, which, yes, I love the atmosphere of this. I love the darker setting to this. I think it's so good. We start having some murders that are happening. Our main character seems to be targeted for some reason. Now, this is not obvious vampires in your face sort of thing. It is very subtly done. Now, a lot of people didn't like that. I preferred it. I adored it. I loved the fact that it wasn't in your face. Like, you knew it was vampires, but it was never explicitly said anywhere, and I think that's good, because you're seeing this from the perspective of somebody that doesn't know that these beings exist. Like, she's just getting tangled up in this world and just seemingly just cannot seem to catch a break from it all, and it's just like, how did I end up here? And then, of course, she's not going to understand what's going on. Of course, she's not going to know that they're vampires and stuff. So I think it works really well from her perspective. I love this story. It has a bit of a slow burn romance in here as well. And it's definitely a little bit, I would say, more medium to slow paced book with just a decadent, slow atmosphere, with this slow unraveling of this darker side to New Orleans, which, yes, I love the setting of this book. It's perfection. So there we have it. Those are my 10 recommendations for autumn. I think you can kind of get the sense of where I was going with this in terms of having murder mystery, magic, slightly darker settings, beautiful writing. These are all books that I would happily just snuggle down with amongst some blankets, cozy jumpers, hot cup of tea, listening to maybe some ambience of like a fireplace crackling and thunder and lightning going. These are the books that I want with that setting, because to me they are just, yeah, just that. They're just perfect. I love them all. So yeah, that was my very rambly thing. But like I said, do let me know, what are some of your autumn book recommendations? Do you agree with any of these? Do you think I'm absolutely loony? Let me know. So if you have enjoyed this video, don't forget to give it that thumbs up and subscribe. Comment to let me know that you're here. And as always, I will of course catch you in the next one.